Hello YouTube, in this episode of the Planetside 2 Armory we'll be covering the anti-vehicle grenades for heavy assaults. The anti-vehicle grenades cost 100 certs, and each individual grenade costs 75 infantry resources, just like the flash grenades. Not a cheap date. So, are they worth their cost? Well, they're basically a cross between normal grenades and C4. You probably gathered that from the tooltip. I tested the grenades with vehicles from several different angles and different range, but first off, they don't stick. They bounce just like normal grenades, and one would think that with an anti-armor grenade, an ideal aspect would be to let it stick to a tank, but nope, they bounce. So they do a bit of damage to vehicles, though this seems to be more determined by the direction the grenade explodes from, rather than proximity to the vehicle. I've had grenades very near the front of the vehicle, and farther away from the front, do about the same damage with only minor differences, whereas having a grenade explode from behind will chop off nearly half of a lightning tank's health, even when detonating further away. The grenade has a slow detonation fuse and takes about as long as a normal grenade takes to detonate, so it's not going to give you super quick damage. And there is a grenade danger indicator, but most tank drivers would probably assume out of habit that it's a normal, non-threatening frag grenade. I've yet to see a tank move to evade a grenade I've thrown at it. The anti-vehicle grenade does do damage to infantry, but it isn't capable of killing full health infantry. I tried numerous times to kill myself with the anti-vehicle grenade, and despite standing on top of it, it won't kill infantry unless they're damaged enough already. Now, you may have looked at the tooltip and thought, it says it melts armor. By any chance does it make a vehicle take more damage? No. Well, if it does, it's too insignificant to factor. I tested this on a Sunderer. The anti-vehicle grenade doesn't seem to increase the damage done to the vehicle by other sources. Or if it doesn't do it by much. That said, the flat damage of the anti-vehicle grenade is a bit less than default heavy assault rocket, at least for the TR. A little bit less or a little bit more depending on how close your grenade is and where you hit the vehicle from. For example, if you can toss a grenade behind a tank, it'll do more damage than you firing your rocket and hitting the tank at the front. So it has situational use. Almost half of the health of a lightning tank if you detonate it from behind, very little damage if detonated from in front. The anti-vehicle grenades, as normal anti-infantry grenades, are a big step down, but they can do some substantial damage to tanks and essentially double over as spare rockets. For your playstyle, maybe that's a good thing, since with the addition of one anti-infantry grenade, you have enough rockets to destroy a normal Sunderer that's at full health. However, that said, you have to consider what anti-vehicle grenades need to compete against, C4. If you have the time to fire every single one of your rockets at a Sunderer, it's probably one that's either about to go down from one of your teammates anyway, or it's not a particularly important Sunderer, because people aren't spawning at it. Otherwise you'd be noticed and your enemies would defend their spawn point. You're not realistically going to have an opportunity to slam a Sunderer with one anti-vehicle grenade, plus all of your rockets, if one's actively being used as a squad spawn point for reinforcements. Whereas with C4, you could go plant 2 C4 on a Sunderer, back away, and fire one rocket, and this would consume less time. If you're trying to be stealthy, that's a better option than pounding away at it with rockets, so with C4 your odds of destroying it would be better. So really, they're a side grade to C4. You gain the ability to throw them instead of having to run up and plant C4, but they do less damage than C4, and are less effective against infantry. If you actually plan to use them for anti-vehicle purposes, you'd probably need to combine them with a grenade bandolier, so you can hit a tank with 2 or 3 at once. That might actually be productive and allow you enough damage to combo with your rockets and kill some stuff, whereas you otherwise would have had to run up to a vehicle and throw C4 on it, which may be much less safe for a heavy assault player than for a light assault. However, running a grenade bandolier with AV nades brings into mind the fact that you're not using nanoweave armor or flak armor, and brings up their price of 75 infantry resources per grenade. There's no way you'll be carrying these things via grenade bandolier, as well as carrying C4. You'll bleed too many infantry resources. If you place your grenades right, 2 could get a lightning tank low enough for you to kill it with 1 rocket. 1 grenade if you're attacking it from behind. 3 of course would kill a lightning by default, but the explosions need to be happening behind or under the lightning. Now consider this, if you use 3 grenades on a lightning, you've already gone over the cost of 2 C4 bricks by 25 infantry resources. So being able to run with 2 grenades in your bandolier and C4 is something I find difficult to pull off. A grenade bandolier carrying 3 grenades plus C4 seems like an unrealistic goal to me. However, they are very effective against max units. The anti-vehicle grenades consider max units to be vehicles and not infantry, and will deal significant damage. Not as much as C4, but one of these anti-vehicle grenades will chop off over half the health of a max unit, closer to 3/4. As a heavy assault, you could probably win an engagement with max past that point by shielding and hammering it with rounds, or firing a single rocket at it and landing a hit. So they're really anti-max grenades. Now, that said, the blast radius as a whole is about the same as it is for normal grenades, which isn't particularly large, so it's going to come down a bit to how good you are with chucking grenades, and if you're willing to trade away your normal grenades, and likely your C4, in return for the anti-vehicle grenades. Not to mention that you need a grenade bandolier for more efficient use. Ultimately, that'll come down to your playstyle. It does the exact same job that C4 does, it's just a different way of going about doing it. Some people fight max units with C4, some people will prefer using anti-vehicle grenades. Some people would prefer to run up to a tank with C4, some players would prefer to toss anti-vehicle grenades at it. It will come down to your personal taste, since it's essentially a different path to do the same job. I do forewarn you, though, that to get maximum effect from your grenades, you'll need to have good grenade aim. They only do maximum damage against tanks if detonated underneath them or behind them, and my tests on lightning tanks indicated that if you just generally get the grenade near the tank, which will probably be most grenade users in this game, if your grenade is facing the front or the sides, the damage will be negligible. A little less damage than a normal rocket hit. Now if you combo that with 1 or 2 rockets, you'll still do significant damage, and if you find yourself frustrated with rocket reload times and not being able to kill armor quickly enough, maybe mixing the grenades into your rocket fire will kick up your speed at killing tanks enough to be worthwhile to you. In summary, the conclusion depends on what you want to use it against. High damage against max units, less effective against infantry. Throwable version of C4 against vehicles, in return for a damage reduction. Full effectiveness requires a grenade bandolier so you can have several grenades going off and damaging a vehicle at once, which can help with slow rocket reload times, but only carrying one and not using the grenade bandolier does have its uses, mainly against max units. Blast radius is about the same size as a normal grenade, and damage against vehicles is mostly directional. So if you're not good with normal frags, I wouldn't recommend anti-vehicle grenades for you. Not if you're actually planning to use them against vehicles, at least. It'll probably come down to how comfortable you are with throwing lots of grenades accurately, and using the grenade bandolier, if you plan to use them against actual vehicles. This is one of the items I can't honestly give a thumbs up or a thumbs down on. It'll come down entirely to your personal playstyle as a heavy assault. The best I can tell you is that if you don't like a grenade bandolier and aren't a great grenade thrower, it won't be as useful against vehicles. But if you are, this will allow you to kill them much faster. If you fight mainly infantry and rely on normal grenades a lot, it's probably a step backwards. If you're having some trouble killing max units, and if you have time to use the grenade first, you'll probably be able to win against a max unit once it's been hit. One follow-up with a rocket or a little spray from your LMG should kill a max most of the time. But, once again, it'll come down to how fond you are of grenades as a whole. Thank you for watching my anti-vehicle grenade review for heavy assaults in Planetside 2, and I'll see you next time. Laters.